just as something that comes out in the wash, and this, it fascinates me that we spend $100,000 a year on rates collection, on debt paid to debt collectors. Presumably Hastings and Napier do the same. It sounds like they're pretty much the same people that are not paying the rates. And in terms of shared services or less, it's amazing we haven't moved on this years ago. So it fascinates me when these little things come out, that why we wouldn't cooperate with them and try and save money in that sense. But apart from that, I think you do a great job, and it's probably the most unenviable job. And I've never understood why we send out rate demands for less than $10 anyway. And I did get one for 5 cents a while back, but I think that was a clerical error. But good report, and just seems that it's every year is pretty similar. It just goes on in the same proportion. Don't happen. So thank you for the report, and very good.
Seconder, you wish to speak? Any other speakers?
Just a suggestion that the rent arrears, if that were linked directly to council remuneration, then we might have a better result being produced.
And are we talking Wairoa here, are we? I'd like to say something just very quietly, and Mr. Keenan alluded he would be doing some work for us at the end of the financial year. Well, actually, that's not quite correct, because Mr. Keenan's retiring in November, and in my estimation, he's the longest serving staff member we have ever had. So that's a big tick for stamina, courage under fire. The leasehold land portfolio has been ably managed by you, Mr. Keenan, and none of it has been easy. So I congratulate you, and certainly congratulate you on a very long and industrious career with what is now called the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. You've been through a few iterations, I suspect. Oh, yeah. But I'd just like everyone to put their hands together, actually, for that. That's in lieu of the gold watch. So there you go.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? You wish? I wasn't going to ask that, Councillor.
I joined the catchment board back in 1969.
Need a medal.
There's a photo out there of a very young-looking fellow sitting in front of a flash Burroughs computer.
Yeah.
Very young.
I might say, Mr. Chairman, when we were on the first council, we must have been a bit more cheeky then, because we used to give John a hell of a lot of teasing about his accent.
Well, people can understand him. No further discussion. I'll put that motion. Then all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. And thank you again, Mr. Keenan. Right. Page 85. Significant delegations exercised. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item is in association with the attachments that were circulated late, so my apologies, they weren't provided in time for the agenda to go out. This, I guess, first attempt at reporting significant delegations exercised is in response to a request by Councillor Curtin some time ago when we reviewed council delegations, and there was a desire by the council to understand on an annual basis how those delegations were being exercised. We tossed around within the staff group the most efficient way of doing this, recognising that there are a lot of delegations that we have that we exercise every day, and we didn't envisage the council wanted to hear about those. So we needed to be able to find a way that provided you with an overview of what we were doing with the delegations, but didn't require great screeds of information capture, manipulation and management of that data into a report, and then presentation back to you. So fortuitously, we do respond annually to a Ministry for the Environment survey around consents related activity and compliance related activity that, on reflection, we thought captured nicely probably the areas the council are interested in. So we've simply taken the step of presenting you that, and I guess we're saying we believe that covers the significant delegations that you would be interested in. and it's a simple and cost-effective way of providing you that information, and would welcome any feedback on whether that's sufficient and or needs to be changed in future.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Any points you particularly want us to look at?
The only point I would make, and it's probably more a pat on the back for staff than anything, is that granted it didn't occur without the approval of the applicants, so the applicants had to agree to have their consent processing put on hold while further information was requested or those sorts of things, but that in this survey period the consents team achieved a 100% hit on processing consents within statutory timeframes, which is still to our knowledge one of the few times that's happened in a consenting regime. So we're justifiably proud of the efforts of the consents team.
Excuse me. Moved Councillor Scott, seconded Councillor Douglas. Any discussion?
There's been quite a bit of criticism out there about consents process and costs of consents and everything else, and especially with regard to publicly, not only here but in Wellington, of the use of the EPA as being time-bound. It is absolutely necessary that the public understand all council consents are time-bound, and the pressure now to deliver on those and the penalty on not delivering on them is quite considerable. The one and only consent process not time bound is the Environment Court, and they've never actually managed to nail them down to get on with the job. But I do think that this is actually a very good response, and we should be aware that council is delivering a very good outcome for us in terms of the consent processing.
Seconder, Councillor Douglas, Mr. Spence.
Mr. Chairman, I just agree with that. I think anything that's like that 100% is brilliant. I could tongue-in-cheek say probably you've got too many staff, but I don't really mean it like that. Just to comment on terms of how it's laid out, my only suggestion is you might be able to put that in a tabular form, just to make it easier, because it's actually buried in the words, but the information is fine. Thank you.
Other speakers? Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Monthly work plan looking forward, page 87.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's reasonably concise this month, and happy to take questions.
Okay, Councillor Scott.
It's just around the RPC committee and the progress with the Office of Treaty Settlements and the bill before Parliament, which we have now been discussing drafts for 2 years.
Yep.
Is this progressing?
Yes, it is actually. I'm pleased to say I had yet another version of it sent a couple of days ago, and our legal advisor, who is Lara Blomfield, and myself have commented back. The OTS have appreciated our prompt reply because they intend to send out a final version today, this afternoon. So yes, it's imminent.
We meet shortly, the committee. Other questions? Councillor Douglas.
Mr. Chairman, just on resource management, on tank, I attended the first meeting and I must say I was very impressed with it, both with the way the staff handled it and indeed the participants. But I was just after a question, what came through in part was some of the science that is the next 18 months, 2 years, which has to be done, is not quite overlapping with the sort of work on the priorities and the thinking that's going behind it. And I just wonder if there's I don't know if you're aware of or got any sense of that, but whether the science program can be mapped out a bit more so people can see it, because some of the questions people are asking can't be answered for 12 months. And so there's a little bit of a integration issue, I suspect, going on in people's heads, if not in some of the chat around. And I don't say we can hurry the science, but I just wonder if it can be laid out a bit more clearly.
Yeah, sure. That's chicken. Certainly, always chicken and egg stuff. And look, we the science team, I guess, are constantly picking up and trying to head off the direction the policy team are heading in, and which is reflective of where the community expectations are guiding them. So, to a certain extent, we have to try and pick lotto numbers and guess that and get ahead of it, but we also have to take a lead from the community on the types of things they need to understand in order to inform the policy debate. I think we've got a very clear steer out of the tuk process on what those are likely to be, agree that we need to map them out in plain speak for people to see, and then tell us we've got it wrong. And that's I haven't had a lot of time myself personally to get involved in the tank process, but I am now, because I'm aware that I need to understand that the strategy our group has fits with the views of the community.
Don't get me wrong, I actually think there's quite good stuff going on there. I've lost track of the second question. One of the things said in Tank was that our good friends from Game and Fish, or whatever they're called, and associated partners are proposing, or indicated they're proposing, a water conservation order on the Ngāroro. What's your sense of, how will that affect the work we're doing, if at all?
I can add some comment, and Ms Lambert might want to add to that as well. Indications are that the conservation order are seeking, in conjunction with a variety of partners, would cover source to sea. The early proposal was that would include water quantity and quality limits. For the lower part of the catchment, that would cut right across the top of the tank process. My understanding, not having attended the meetings but certainly spoken to some of the stakeholders involved, there is a degree of interest in that, and whether that sort of runs over the collaborative process. There's some tension in that, whether the conservation order proposal, which is enduring, fairly rigid and difficult to change, is a better mechanism to achieve water quality and quantity limits, standards, rules, policies, or whether a collaboratively developed regional planning mechanism that can be adapted and managed according to community values and expectations in the future is the best option. I guess time will tell.
Mr Chairman, aren't water conservation orders intended for areas that are essentially natural, unmodified, and of high aesthetic value?
There's very strong case law around conservation orders. Outstandingness is the test. That's been traversed many times by the Environment Court and various tribunals. So there's strong wording in case law. Effectively, the applicants would have to come to the tribunal and prove outstandingness, be that for a trout fishery or a native fishery or some other value in that catchment, and then typically what would happen is that the tribunal would deliver a framework that protects that value. So you identify the value you think has a high level and a high significance or outstandingness, and then deliver a framework to protect that. And that could be natural character, it could be a fishery, it could be landscape or wilderness values. It doesn't necessarily have to be a backcountry part of the region. The Motueka River down in Marlborough is a good example where areas of the catchment which are still modified have conservation order controls over them. Mohaka also does as well for parts of it to prevent damming and diversion. So there's no one hard and fast rule, other than I'd say that the bar to meet to demonstrate that a value is outstanding is very, very high.
What tribunal is it that deals with that?
Typically, so the application will go to the Minister for the Environment, and she has no statutory time frames on which she has to make a decision or act, but she then considers the application and would need to convene a special tribunal of people to hear the application.
And can a water order override regional resource management plan provisions, such as Plan 6, if it's actioned?
If they applied for a conservation order over areas that were under the Plant Change 6 jurisdiction, then this council would have to give effect to those conservation order provisions through its regional plan. So in effect, yes, it would be the ultimate mechanism, but the council would have to deliver policy and rule framework to give effect to the conservation order outcome.
The Macra Dam, what's the state of that? The locals are hoping that someone will tell them what's going on at some stage, if anything.
What's happening, but the detailed design is being done as I speak, and I am expecting that we will receive a draft of the tender documents in the next week or two and go from there with the tender. So the objective is certainly to, as has been said a number of times, to get the thing built or reconstructed, resorted this summer.
What is there a program for regular liaison with the committee or the locals, or is it going to be a letter occasionally, or what's the? They're under the impression that as a result of the misunderstandings from previous years that there would be a more robust communication system in place, and they seem to think that that's not happening as yet.
Well, that's fine. But there is. I mean, they have been informed of the process that is underway. I'm expecting to have a meeting with them. Once we have the detailed design and the tender process is underway and the resource consent or the building consent process is underway, then it is appropriate to go and explain all of that to them, and that's what will happen.
I suggest the occasional email to the chairman might be gratefully received, and he can dissipate.
He's been in touch with me over the last 2 weeks.